Go then. Now, I'm in great company now. It's a pleasure to interview an emerging artist, Ava Bentley, on my show. Glad to have you here. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
You're welcome. And where are you situated in the world right now?
I am in the Houston area.
Nice, that's Texas, right?
It is. I should have specified. Yes, I'm
Oh,
in
great. No
Houston,
worries.
Texas.
And where you live, has that always been like an inspiration, with, composing music?
Yes, I've had the ability to travel all over the world as well. So there's a lot of influence from, other places I've traveled in the world. But, I primarily grew up in the Houston area and, there's a lot of country influence here. And so with me being a country artist, it just was natural for me to listen to that genre and identify with it.
Great. And you're a lyricist as well. When you're writing, your songs, would you say you're a narrator and a storyteller in your songwriting?
I am, yeah. So all the songs you hear are either written from my heart, literally, or I also take inspiration from friends and family. A couple of my songs were, inspired by poems of a friend who also basically is a co-writer because I used his poems as the basis of the song. So yeah, but they're all my lyrics and. Even with the poems that were introduced, I put some structure of the poem there, but I also wrote it from my perspective as well.
And your latest single as well, one of your album tracks is called Timeless. And do you feel this takes a reader on a journey as well?
It does. I absolutely think it does. The Timeless album, when I wrote it, was really about a journey and how, everything can be, timeless. In my world, I was facing death with heart failure, and that really was the inspiration as well. I really had a better understanding about just how short time is, that we get here in this world. But there are some things that are just timeless, regardless. If we're here or not, they will go on.
Like Memories.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Timeless is a single taken from the album of the same name on your is it a debut album?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I had other albums out, but I think we really looked to promote Timeless because I was really maturing in my music journey. And, although I have great, albums that were out, prior to Timeless, that one, we just felt was the strongest, that we felt like listeners would connect to more. And it was more of my mature music.
And we'll chat about some of your album tracks shortly. And when people think of the word timeless, it might mean that they're affected, how time changes, the passage of time. Was that the message you wanted to convey on the song?
Essentially, yes. And that, things that affect us, like loving someone, can be timeless if they're your soulmate or your twin flame, as others will also refer to it. And that's part of that as well. Like we're all seeking that. If you listen to some of the other songs, it talks about the twin flame and soulmates and then timeless is, at the end of that album, it's also the cover song of, once you look for that person. We all have that connection, and you're always looking, for that, regardless of, when and where you are in time.
And when you're putting like an album on, the first thing you hear is track number one, which is an opening track called Dreams.
Yes, yes. For that one, it really was a bit of a co-collaboration with the poet, and we were talking about some verses that he had mentioned, and he just left me with that. He kind of like dropped them like little mini bombs. And I'm like, huh, yes, I could see a song, with that. And then I woke up and I wrote it, and it was so romantic. And it's really about, truly loving someone. And, you kind of dream of this, and then you bring it into reality when you look for that special someone. So there's a lot of love threads through this timeless album too.
And when you think of dreams, it's a nice name, isn't it? And a nice word.
Yes, yeah, and I really love the end of it because there's some music at the end that just it almost makes you feel like cuddle music. Like if you're dancing with someone, it just locks you into that moment where the song's not quite ending, but the melody and the music is so beautiful. You're just locked into one another.
Mm.
And I did that by intent. I did that on purpose.
And when you're holding a CD, whether it's a new album or you're listening on your phone, you look at the track titles. Some people like me look into it. Another track on the album is called "Ghost in the Mirror." Do you think that can make the listener think, "Oh, what's that about?"
Yeah, so that's about it was also a poem from my friend Doc, and it was about the death of a child and just how devastating that is, obviously for both parents, but and the mother and the father will deal with it in very different ways. But either way, it is so devastating and so profound. No one can ever get over the death of their child. And you face a lot of internal pain. And that's really what that poem was about. And I took it and I crafted it in a way that I can, it's from the father's point of view, but there's a mother element in there as well. And then this third party who sees, from the outside and the pain that they're dealing with,
Mm.
but yet what they're changing about themselves, and what they're bringing back to the world. And, and they'll never forget this child, but looking at it from, two these different point of views, that's really what I meant to capture in the song and the video. And
Yeah.
I think it did. I get so much feedback from hearing the song and then people who see the video and then trying to and they'll talk to me about they'd like to play this at a funeral, or it touched them so much they'd gone through something similar, so it is having that effect on people.
That must be fulfilling to hear from people, that your
Oh,
music's powerful.
absolutely, absolutely.
Cool. And also, do you feel this album offers a listener, something for everyone?
I do. I think, if you're a romantic, and I am, so it was written from that perspective as well. Regardless if it's a loss, or if it's finding new love, we all experience these things. And that's really what the Timeless is about, is, finding love, losing, a child in this case, and tragedy. I mean, that's really what it's about. And like I said, I'm a romantic. And at the time I was writing this album, I was recovering from major heart surgery. I didn't know if I was going to make it. And, there was so much emotion going through me that, there was a lot of that I think, came, into these songs, was that level of emotion that I was experiencing.
And I hope this is right. One of the penultimate track, I think it's track 11, is called Pants. Was that a fun track to make on a light-hearted note?
It was, because I've always been a very independent woman. And one of my male friends is like, you're going to have to take the pants off sometime. You can't always be wearing the pants and being independent if you, want to find, someone who's going to be a partner with you. You're going to have to bend a little bit. It can't be just your way. And I've always been so independent. I'm like, yeah, take the pants off. Huh. I think that's a good song. He thought that was a good song. So I'm like, well, you know what? I'm up for the challenge. I'll write a song about this. And out came Pants. And it's a great song. It's a fun song. There's innuendos in it, of course, and it's by design. Because I was trying to kind of be silly in a little bit with the song, but it turned out to be a really good track, and I love it. I really love Pants.
And one word someone's described it is sassy. Would you agree with that word?
Oh, yes, it's very sassy. And
Fantastic.
and that's the inspiration of my new,
Yeah.
single that came out, and my new album that'll drop this summer called
Yeah.
Sassitude. So they're all going to be sassy.
Got it. And with your styles, would you say there's a lot of modern country in there, classic country influences?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up on classic country, but I love all the modern stuff too, the Ella Langleys and Taylor Swifts, and Miranda Lambert's, but I love Dolly Parton and Reba McEntire and Sarah Evans, and the list goes on. Tammy
Yeah.
Wynette, Loretta Lynn, Kitty Wells. I grew up on all of that, and I would say all of it is very inspirational. And I'm trying to get even more specific on the new songs that I'm writing to
Yeah.
blend the modern with the classic and new sounds and have something that is just different than what people have heard in the past. I feel like I've got that range and flexibility with AI artistry and using digital creation that is I'm pushing my own boundaries and challenging myself to come up with new things and new sounds. But I also want them to connect with the audience and have that emotional connection, have that electrifying connection. And so that's what I'm working on now is next generation country in my mind.
And you mentioned next generation, how important it is to keep introducing country music, to the next generation after another, keep it going.
Absolutely. I think it's timeless. No pun
Mm.
intended for my album. But I believe country music is timeless. It is here to stay. I think artists, are going to have to come up with creative ways to keep, the listenership up but there's so much competition with genres and I personally listen to all music. I'm not always just tied to country. I'm tied to what I like to hear.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people are that way today. We might like country, but I love pop too, and I love classical. I actually even like opera, so it depends on what I'm in the mood for. And I think everybody's that way. Your playlists are not one single artist and they're not necessarily one single genre. It's what moves you, right? What touches you, what you feel a connection to. And that's what, I personally identify with country, but it doesn't mean I don't listen to or appreciate other genres.
It could be a moment in time, like timeless.
Bingo. Yeah.
And I was going to say versatility. It's nice to have that. Like one artist who's had that is Beyonce. Like she
Yeah.
ventured into, recording Jolene, even mentioning where you're from, Texas. What
Hmm.
were your thoughts on that?
I think that's great. I mean, she's got so much range, and a lot of artists do. For me, just starting out, I feel like I've got to stick with country, but maybe in the future I will cross over. And I think Beyonce has the capability of doing that, the range to do that. It makes sense. And if she's moved, by, crossing over into other genres, good, because she's so good, right? Same thing with Taylor Swift and many others. It just
Mhm.
depends on the artist and what their focus on, what their labels want them to be focused on. From that standpoint, for me, I'm sticking with country because I think that makes a lot of sense. And I just naturally identify with it, from my looks to, just how I am, my personality. But boy, I love pop music and other genres as well. So who knows what, the future holds for Ava. But right now it's country.
Good for you. And what was the feeling like to claim, you know, the top slots on the Amazon Hot New Releases?
Yeah, I mean, it was so awesome to achieve that, and it actually was very motivating for me, and also a surprise, quite frankly. And the songs are really good, and I knew that. In fact, just not enough that reached number one. Was the minute I wrote it, I knew it was going to be a hit. Did I know it was going to be number one? No, but I knew it was going to be a hit. There was just something very magical about that song. And, there was something special in the mixture and how I wrote it. And so, I was so happy to see that. I mean, over the moon. I think I cried actually. So it was just very rewarding, to see that and to experience that too. All artists, want to achieve that, right? That's a goal. And to have had that experience was just so, so exciting for me.
Successful.
Yeah.
Very well
Yeah.
done. What would you like to say to anyone who's bought your album, listened to it, giving you positive feedback?
Yeah, I just think everybody who's, listening and supporting, and I'm glad for those who, like the music and are connecting with it. That's the whole point. When you're an artist, you want to strike the chord of, someone that they connect with this in some emotional level, whether it's electrifying, they want to get up and dance, or there's something so personal that touches them because so it reminds them of something, a memory, a moment.
Mhm.
That's, as any artist, you want your listeners and fans to be able to connect. And that's the most important thing for me. When I'm writing these songs, I'm looking to build a connection with them so that, music is so powerful. It can heal you. It can, make you feel something. It can strike a memory. And so it really touches all of us in some way, one way or another. And that's to me what I hope this album is doing for those who are listening to it, those who are supporting it, those who are buying it. And I have so much more to come from Ava. I write songs almost every single day. I've got a vault of music, but the times, at which you release it or the pace and what you release it is got have a lot of control around that. But I would love to just push it all out so everybody can have, that connection and that moment and that memory. Because I want to connect with my fans and I want the music to connect with them.
That's very fair enough. And do you have an official website where people can visit or any social media links? Feel free to fire away now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got avabentley.com. Now, Bentley spelled Bently. There's no E in the Bentley. And people are used to that. You can also go to Ava Bentley Music on all the socials. Most of them are Ava Bentley Music or just Ava Bentley. And I'm on all of them, right? I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of them, right? So Facebook. You can find me just about everywhere these days. So please feel free to go out there, find me, listen to my music. You can learn more on my website about my backstory. But it's such a great opportunity to connect with fans in many different capacities, whatever their choice is from a social media or website standpoint.
Fantastic. So we will put all the links to your latest album, Timeless, below in the video. And I just want to say to all my guests, I always say thank you very much for your contribution on the show, and very best of luck with the rest of you know, composing music and enjoying what you do.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Danny.
You're
Hopefully
very
we'll do
most
it again
welcome.
sometime.
Yes, call me when the next project is out, and we will book you
Absolutely.
back in. Thanks, Ava
Awesome.
Bentley, on today's show.
Thank
Cracking
you.
interview. Take care.
Thank you. All right. Bye bye.